Hi, I'm Lynn Wise, and with me today via Skype is Rebecca Keller. Today we're going to be talking about the Zika virus. So first, Rebecca, can you tell us a little bit about the virus, its symptoms, and how it's spread?
So the virus is spread by mosquitoes, much like malaria or dengue fever, which may be more familiar to people. It has relatively mild symptoms, if any at all. Actually, the majority of cases are asymptomatic. But if people do show symptoms, they tend to be fever, flu-like symptoms, some conjunctivitis, aches, maybe a rash. But they tend to be very, very mild. It's the associated side effects that have been of the most concern, specifically the potential link between the Zika virus and a birth defect microcephaly, which is an abnormally small head and potential brain damage or developmental issues. There's been a link, or there's an associated pattern between that birth defect and Zika that's been seen in Brazil, with an uptick in cases there. While the true nature of the link hasn't been fully established yet, that's what's causing a lot of the concern right now in the global health community.
So the World Health Organization recently designated Zika as a global public health emergency. The last time they did that was with Ebola. What is the significance of that designation?
So there was some criticism about the World Health Organization's delay in reacting to Ebola, and it'd be speculation on my part to say that was why they made this decision. But what it allows for is the fast track in aid and in research to work to control the disease and potentially find a vaccine down the road. But the real focus in the near term is going to be on control measures, preventing breeding grounds, standing water, using insecticides to control the mosquito populations, that kind of thing.
So here at Stratfor, we cover geopolitics. When we're talking about disease, obviously there's this human element, but there's also a geopolitical element. How do we view sickness through a geopolitical lens?
From a geopolitical perspective, its impact on adults, the working age population that produces the majority of the economic output, is relatively small. Its mild symptoms are asymptomatic. When we look at diseases, we also look for the potential for global spread, and that certainly exists with Zika. Its spread to the Americas is, in fact, evidence of that. We had seen cases in Africa and Southeast Asia before this. And then we also look towards the potential for economic disruption, where we see barriers to trade or travel. And thus far, there are no recommended travel restrictions for Zika for the general population. Again, we're talking about a relatively small percentage being pregnant women, where there's some concern about travel to Zika-infected areas. And lastly, we look towards the interconnectedness of that region to the rest of the world. Should we see disruptions in trade or travel, how connected is the region? So Brazil is connected to globally, and if there were a shutdown, there would be a larger economic impact, but we don't expect that from Zika.
But it seems like this is really going to have long-term effects more than maybe other viruses because of its impact on pregnant women and women delaying having babies because of Zika, and also on the babies that are born with birth defects. How are governments expecting that this will play out in the long term?
I don't know that we have a good idea on that yet. So there's certainly governments calling for women of childbearing age to delay pregnancy. So we'll have to see if that happens, what percentage of the population heeds those warnings. If simple fear, also, like not just governments asking for it, but personal fear requires or causes a drop in birth rates. South America has it's a pretty healthy demographic pattern where there's a larger working age population supporting a smaller, older one. And if we see a really large effect from this, that could skew that, 18, 20, a couple decades down the road. But we don't really know that impact yet. In the immediate term, there's a lot of calls for social changes on abortion laws and contraceptive laws in the region. But again, we haven't really seen enough yet to know exactly what the long-term impact is going to be there.
Thank you, Rebecca. It sounds like we have a lot of unanswered questions still. For more on sickness and geopolitics, please visit stratfor.com.